Have you ever gotten that gut-deep feeling that someone thinks they can just claim what belongs to you? That's exactly the kind of wave that crashed over me harder than anything I'd felt before. It was a bright, calm Saturday morning when Karen and her son pulled into my driveway. At first, I thought it was nothing more than a friendly drop-in. I knew Karen, everyone did. Always polite, always sugary sweet in that way that sometimes tries a little too hard to mask something else underneath. But nothing, absolutely nothing, could have prepared me for what came next. Her son, let's call him Jason, had that look in his eyes. You know the kind. The look that broadcasts pure entitlement. That silent message of, I want it, so it's mine. He pointed at my Jeep like he was identifying his own lost property. That's my Jeep, he said, so casually you'd think it was a misunderstanding instead of a flat-out claim on something sitting on my own driveway. I froze. My Jeep, my pride, my escape, my freedom on four wheels. For a second, I couldn't even form a response. The audacity was so bold that it made me question reality. Karen let out a nervous laugh, trying to soften the moment with her over-polished charm. He's just joking, she insisted. But I saw the true flicker in her eyes, the quiet approval, the belief that whatever her son wanted, he should have. That's when I realized it wasn't a joke at all. Jason genuinely believed he had a right to my property. The thing is, I'm not the kind of person who steps aside when someone crosses a line on purpose. But as things started heating up, I had to think quickly. I wanted to protect my Jeep without turning a neighborhood misunderstanding into a full-blown legal disaster. But that thought disappeared the instant Jason stepped closer and casually opened my driver's side door like he owned the place. That was the moment something inside me snapped. But here's where the twist hits, one most people never see coming. I didn't just have instinct on my side. I had prepared. I had leverage. I had the ultimate backup. Because I'd already been in contact with the state attorney, dealing with a completely separate issue, something I never expected to overlap with the situation in any way. Yet suddenly, the timing couldn't have been more perfect. My Jeep, Jason's arrogance, and the legal advantage I wasn't afraid to use collided in a way that would halt anyone in their tracks. Suddenly, it wasn't just a Jeep anymore. It became a battle over boundaries, respect, and the cold reality that you cannot claim something simply because you want it. And Jason, well, he had no idea what was headed straight for him. The instant Jason locked onto my Jeep, it became clear this wasn't some little burst of confidence. It was a full-blown fixation. He circled around it like a predator scoping out a meal, muttering about how he deserved it, as if saying it enough times would make it true. I tried to stay composed, but the tension felt like static electricity crawling across my skin. Every time I tried to speak, Karen jumped in with her polished, sugary laughter, smoothing over his wild claims as if they were adorable quirks instead of blatant disrespect. What makes him think he can take my Jeep? I asked myself silently, tightening my grip on my keys. It wasn't just about the Jeep, it was the principle. I'd been raised to protect what's mine. Never did I imagine I'd be doing that against a neighbor's kid who acted like rules didn't exist. Jason's entitlement hit its peak when he tried to start the Jeep, literally hand gripping the wheel, foot hovering over the brake like he could bend reality by sheer force of ego. That was the point. I drew the line. I stepped forward, voice steady but sharp. Step away from my Jeep. You don't have permission to touch it. He laughed. That condescending, obnoxious kind of laugh that burns into you. Come on, everyone knows I get whatever I want, he said. My jaw tightened. I knew I had two options. Dive headfirst into a shouting match with the teenage dictator, or bring in someone who actually had the power to shut this down immediately. And then it clicked. The state attorney, weeks earlier, been in touch with them about something totally unrelated. Never in a million years did I think that connection would end up serving me in a showdown of pure entitlement. But with Jason acting like he existed above the law, it was the perfect time to remind him that consequences were real. I reached for my phone, and before I even dialed, Karen's eyes widened. Her confidence cracked. You can't do that, Jason snapped, trying desperately to reset the power dynamic. But I didn't budge. Calmly I said, I've already spoken to the state attorney, and they're aware of the situation. This isn't a game. You cannot take what doesn't belong to you. The shift in the air was immediate. Karen's protective posture wilted, doubt spreading across her face. And Jason, he froze, trapped between disbelief and fear. It had never occurred to him that I'd be ready, that I'd already set the stage. That moment changed everything. It stopped being about words. It stopped being about attitude. It became about preparation, authority, and the simple truth that entitlement doesn't override the law. And from that point on, nothing unfolded the way Jason or his mother expected. Jason's smirk vanished the instant he realized this wasn't going to be one of those easy take whatsoever you want moments he was used to. Up until then, he'd been operating under the belief that my Jeep or anything else he set his sights on was simply his for the taking. But that belief slammed straight into reality when I calmly opened the saved messages from my conversation with the state attorney. "You need to understand something," I said firmly, holding up my phone so he could see. "This isn't a threat. This is the law. And the law doesn't bend for entitlement." Karen's face drained completely of color. Jason's bravado cracked. The confidence that had fueled hours of bold behavior evaporated in seconds. I could practically see the silent panic setting in, the gears turning in his head as the question formed. What did I just get myself into? I told them I had already filed a report about property disputes. And while my Jeep wasn't the exact issue in that report, the state attorney had made it clear how seriously they considered any unauthorized use of someone else's property. "Touching my Jeep without permission isn't a joke," I said. "And it's not some harmless neighbor misunderstanding. Under the law, it's theft." Jason opened his mouth to push back, but I cut him off before he could even start. "Do you want the easy way or the hard way?" I asked, calm, but unshakably serious. The easy way meant stepping back, acknowledging the boundary, and leaving before things escalated. The hard way meant facing consequences he had never imagined. The air shifted immediately. Karen tried to jump in, but her voice trembled. It's just a Jeep," she stammered, her usual fake confidence replaced with genuine fear. I shook my head. "It's never just a Jeep when someone tries to take what's yours. It's about respect, boundaries, consequences." Jason's expression twisted between shame, disbelief, and anger. He had never run into someone willing to enforce a boundary with such confidence, and certainly not someone armed with legal backing. For the first time, he realized just how reckless he'd been. To drive the point home, I escalated just enough. I explained that the state attorney could issue a formal warning or even pursue charges if there were any further attempts to claim or take my vehicle. That was the line he couldn't cross. Whatever courage he had left completely disappeared. Karen tried one last attempt to defend him, but it fell apart instantly. The reality had hit them both. This wasn't a childish argument. Jason wasn't going to drive away in my Jeep, and Karen's sense of superiority had finally met something stronger, the law, and that law was standing firmly on my side. By the end of it, I'd reclaimed my space, my Jeep, and my peace of mind. But the story didn't end there. What came next was the fallout, the texts, the awkward encounters, and the desperate scramble they made to save face after being utterly exposed. The morning after the confrontation, I thought everything was finally settled. My Jeep was where it belonged. The legal precedent had been made clear. Karen and Jason had retreated back to their side of the street. But anyone familiar with entitled behavior knows peace always comes with one last dramatic attempt to regain control. My phone buzzed early with a series of messages. First from Karen: "We didn't mean any harm. You really didn't have to bring the state attorney into it." Then another message followed. "Jason just wanted to borrow it for a few weeks." Borrow. That was her excuse. After everything that had happened, it would have been funny if it weren't so ridiculous. I chose not to reply. Silence was the clearest message I could send. But Jason wasn't satisfied leaving things there. Later that afternoon, he showed up, lingering awkwardly near the edge of my driveway, hands buried deep in his pockets. For the first time, he actually looked like a kid who finally understood that actions have consequences. "I just wanted to apologize," he muttered. "I didn't know it could get that serious." I studied him for a moment. "Jason, you didn't think it could get serious because no one's ever told you no. That's not entirely your fault. but now's the time to learn what no actually means." He nodded, humbled, and walked away quietly. But Karen couldn't leave things on that note. A few days later, she cornered me at the mailbox, her tone sugary but dripping with resentment. "You really made a big deal out of nothing," she said, arms folded tightly. I smiled calmly. "It's only a big deal when someone doesn't respect boundaries. All I did was make mine clear." She didn't respond, and that ended up being the last real conversation we ever had. She avoided me after that, maybe out of embarrassment, maybe out of anger, but it didn't matter. The message had been delivered, loudly and permanently. No one gets to claim what belongs to you. The best part. A few weeks later, I got a call from the state attorney's office, thanking me for the detailed documentation I had provided. Turns out my case actually helped them resolve another neighborhood property issue. My Jeep drama ended up making a bigger impact than I ever expected. Looking back, the whole experience taught me a powerful lesson. Standing your ground isn't always about confrontation. It's about preparation. When you know your rights and keep the law on your side, you're not just protecting your property, you're protecting your peace. So the next time you find yourself facing a Jason or a Karen, remember this: you don't need to yell, argue, or lose your cool. All you need is clarity, confidence, and the right ally. And sometimes, that ally is the law itself. And that's how knowing your rights turns a wild situation into a win. If you enjoyed this story and love seeing justice served, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next unbelievable Karen tale. Drop your own story in the comments. Have you ever dealt with someone this entitled? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.